Hey all, Pixel here, Improbable Garage, and today we're going the other direction. I've been absent from my channel for about a month, and that is because I have been working on a kitchen renovation that I thought was going to take a week, and well, you'll see it didn't. But yeah, it's been the thing that's been kind of eating my entire life for that time. All the time I normally would have been in the garage was instead spent working on that. So this is going to be basically a video diary is what you're going to see. I filmed little bits and pieces as I went along. These videos, this started on December 26th, and my partner had that entire week between Christmas and New Year's off of work. So she was going to be able to put in a bunch of time. I was still working, but I was going to be able to put in time after work. So we figured we would just bang through this whole project, get it done, and we'd have a shiny new kitchen for New Year's. Hello and welcome to the Improbable Kitchen. So I wanted to film before we started tearing anything apart and sort of show you what we're working with, what the plans are. This is all a mess. We haven't even finished completely cleaning up from Christmas cookies. This is essentially the kitchen as it stands. Living room's over there, and I'm going to show you a bunch more, but that's basically what we have. And then on the back wall, there's the two bedrooms. There's not really anything relevant there. These cabinets date from at least the 70s, probably earlier. They could be 60s, they could be 50s. I don't actually know. But they're not built in, as in designed for the space, but they fit really well overall. Like good usage of space, we've got that. The window, this all fits nice and tight with literally that's the only spacer that's put in anywhere. So those fit great. There's the enclosed soffits at the top, which I like because they prevent me from having a whole surface I have to worry about dusting. And more cabinetry up there would be useless because I wouldn't really be able to reach it, let alone my partner or the kiddo. For the lower cabinets, we've got a single 18, a 36, 18 drawers, the 36 where the sink is, an 18 drawer, and then this is another 36 here, half of which is covered by the stove. This is the biggest sort of compromise area because we don't have any handles on these because the stove hit them. This is a door that was the other way around. This is how it was when we bought it. This door clearly was the other way around based on the candle holes. And then there's this drawer here that I tried to improve. I actually cut the end off of it, and it allows it to sort of open, but badly and awkwardly. But this cabinet does wrap into this space, so that's where we have big pots and pan storage and stuff in there. That's not the problem we're solving today. The problem we're solving today is that there is no dishwasher, and I'm tired of doing my dishes. So the complication for no dishwasher is there is also no 24-inch cabinet, which is the size of a standard dishwasher. So if I bought a standard dishwasher, I would lose, like, not just, you know, like say I wanted to remove this one, move things over and put the dishwasher here. I wouldn't just lose this much storage. I would lose effectively all of this because the dishwasher would come to, you know, here, and then there'd be a little 12-inch, which would be useless as far as compared to the amount of storage that is. So the next thing is an 18-inch dishwasher. So technically, I could pull that 18-inch cabinet out, shift all of this over, put an 18-inch dishwasher in there. Relatively easy, not a big deal. But I don't want to lose that much storage, and this is our silverware and drawers and stuff, and having it pushed way over would be awkwardly far away from everything. I can't really do anything on this side, because I would either lose these three drawers, which we can't afford to lose that much storage, or if I tried to push them over, they then would run into the stove. My plan is I'm going to cut this whole cabinet essentially in half. Do some modifications, like this top piece is going to get replaced so that it doesn't have these ridges just like it's going to be done properly and neatly. But the general idea is saw this thing in half, dishwasher goes in here. That means my double bay sink obviously isn't going to work because there's going to be a dishwasher in the way here. I haven't 100% nailed down the plan here. The plan is either there is an IKEA sink that is a bowl of about the same size as this and a drain board that will take up a similar amount of space and will help it look right, because you'll have the big, you know, this will all be... It'll look right because this will all be stainless steel, even though that side's a drain board and that side's a sink. The other option is there's another IKEA sink that I think will just cram itself in here, like given the dimensions of the cabinet. Like a sink that would normally go this way will go this way and be very deep, but as wide as possible, give us the biggest possible single sink. It will require the faucet to be mounted offset because the sink will be taking up so much of the front to back space, but that would give us the biggest possible single sink. Haven't 100% decided. That's a decision I can make later. But since I need to cut this all up and change the sink, the countertop needs to come out. And I hate this countertop. It is a piece of wood with cheap, fake, very, very fake granite laminate that is all peeling up. So, oh, and the other thing with this countertop is, for some bizarre reason, it comes out to 25 inches here, and then it cuts in here to 24 inches so that there's not quite enough room to remove the stove. Like, I'm not even joking. You can get the stove out to here, but that doesn't quite give you enough room to maneuver the stove out, which is why this piece of trim is broken, because getting the stove out to repair a gas line problem resulted in us ripping that piece of trim off the wall. So there's no reason whatsoever for this step to be here. All it does is give you false hope. So what I'm going to do is just put in a 24-inch. So that's the basic, like, those are the things I need to change. I need to put a dishwasher in. I need to change the sink as a result. And I need to change the countertop as a result. You know, those are the stacked have-to-dos. Since we're going to be in here anyway, replacing all this stuff, obviously we might as well redo this. These cabinets are solid wood and are currently polyurethaned, but as you can tell by the horrible mismatch in the grain and color and whatnot, these were paint grade cabinets, not stain grade cabinets. These were always intended to be painted. That's why they don't match at all. That's why you've got these weird color variations and stuff. It's because they're always supposed to be painted. So we're going to do that. We're going to paint all the cabinets, top and bottom. Don't scream at me for painting wood, because like I said, these were always kind of cabinets that were intended to be painted. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change out all the hardware. I'm going to remove this little awkward whoop-de-doo here and either just put a simple board across or put something cooler across if I come up with something. I was actually a little sad that the chalkboards had already been removed and the frames had already been trashed, because I would have loved to have gotten the chalk tray at the bottom, the wood chalk tray, and put that as the piece there, because it would have been a nice complement to that. And here's the kitchen, as stripped down as we can get it without disconnecting stuff. All the cabinets are empty, everything's been taken out, switch plates removed, towel holder removed. The next step is we've got to disconnect the water so we can get the sink out, and we have to disconnect the gas line so we can move the stove out of the way. And then violence. I think we fucked up this kitchen.
I mean, I think we made this kitchen okay.
So, let's talk about the quality of the work from our prior house owners. So, the surface under their countertop was early MDF because, you know, an absorbent thing that can hold moisture is definitely where you want all your moisture, you know, right by all your moisture. That doesn't cause any sort of mold problems. And then this entire countertop was secured in place by 2 screws in the center cabinet and that little bit of trim over there. And that's it. There's nothing else. Once we took those 2 screws out and I cut this in half, these 2 just slid right out. So, quality. All right, so it's not going to be part of this project, but another project that's going to happen in this kitchen is this section of wall here that's currently behind the stove has the chimney running up the center of it, which used to be brick and is now a steel chimney, and has big dead spaces on either side. The one on the other side I've turned into a pantry that opens from that far side, so you used that whole space, but there's still a dead space over here. So since I had the stove out, I took off this piece of hardboard and went poking in here, and you can see, I don't know how obvious it is, but there's a chunk of dead space in here. And to so that big thing is the furnace, is this chimney, obviously. That black thing towards the back, that is a gas line for the second floor. This silver thing closer to us, that's the conduit that takes the power to the second floor. Now, technically, I only have to be 2 inches away from the chimney. So basically that collar you see down there is how close I can be to the chimney. The gas line, don't worry, is further away than that the whole way up. I've got it secured higher up so it doesn't lean in. So technically, I could get much, much closer. Like I could basically have that be right up against that conduit. But I think I'm going to play it a little safe, and that 2x4 there is kind of going to be my new end wall when I do this. And from this edge of that one to here is just over 16 inches. So if I bring the wall back, I will gain 16 inches of depth here, which will be enough to put a small cabinet here, have a little bit of counter on the far side of the stove and another cabinet overhead, and regain this space and make it better for cooking in this little corner. So that is a future project, but one I'm both dreading and looking forward to at the same time, because the other side was kind of a pain, but it was also a really cool project to reclaim that space. All right, and here we are after one evening's work. We've got the sink out, we've got the countertop off, we've pried all the tile off that we can, which has led to the first, but probably not the last, scope creep of this project, which is this has tile up behind it. So I want to get those last bits of tile out, which means I have to take this out. And if I'm taking this vent out, I'm not putting it back in again because it's old and loud and whatnot. So I'm going to replace that since it has to come out anyway. But I'm really happy. No horrific surprises, which is, thank God. I'm really happy with how this has all come apart, and we've now got a good base to start working on building back. All right, next day I'm starting work. My partner's out buying so many supplies. She spent most of the day. She had to drive to Connecticut to get the sink we need from IKEA because the local IKEA didn't have it in stock. So she's fucking awesome. But I'm trying to get this unit out so that we can do the modifications we need to it. It was held in by the most random freaking hardware. 2 flatheads holding it to the wall, another flathead here holding it to the other one with that in between. Then on this side, we had Phillips, one back here with that block, another one down into here. There's one in here. There's a threaded screw that goes into a boss on the other side that looks like it's part of the actual cabinet set there. And then there's another there's another threaded screw. Over there, you may notice some issues. I had to cut the splash thing, whatever the heck that's called, down there free. I tried to peel it off in that corner and created a new job for myself. But for now, I got it in. I got it cut. But the thing is, prying up on it, I'm just moving the bottom. This is all, like, the whole thing is coming apart as much as it's coming out. And I can't really pull it out until she gets back because we need to cut these water lines and turn the water off to the whole house and remove that plumbing before we can properly rip this thing out. I would love to just replace this, but you can't seem to find, we're not even talking about quality. You can't seem to find this type of cabinet anymore with just the flat front wood easily. Nobody stocks it anymore that I could find. So I have to reuse this to some degree or another, which means I'm probably going to end up largely rebuilding it. But such is what it is. So I'm going to wait for her to get back and then I'm going to turn to this. I already knew the bottom needed to be replaced or something because it's got some rot from a past drip. I did not expect it to just start spontaneously disassembling itself. So it's a bummer, but I know I can fix it. It's not going to be super difficult. And worst case, I'll have a couple of nail or screw holes in the front that I need to putty up, but that's fine. The other big thing that we need to work on, like this is the big thing, to be able to get the dishwasher in and the sink in and therefore start working on the countertop. For the backsplash, we need to work on getting all of this excess mortar, or not all of it. We've decided on a way to avoid that issue. We need to get the worst of it off. We need to get all the really tall spots off. And then we're going to put 1/4-inch hardy board, like you'd put behind tile, over this, because that'll space this back out the amount that the tile was. And that'll mean like our plugs line up and stuff, because we're doing a copper backsplash in that part, in the upper part, so we wouldn't, our plug, like the plugs would end up floating above that if we didn't put something in. So saves us a step and gets us where we need to be. Awesome. All right, we've got it out, and it's over here. To orient you, it's laying on its back. It is in much worse shape than I thought. The bottom I already knew was not in good shape, but it's actually completely rotten, to the point where it's also rotten down here. Also, this is cheap chipboard and this is cheap chipboard, both of which are in bad shape. So I'm going to be rebuilding more of this than I had hoped. The plan right now is I knocked this end off. I would love to cut this with a tongue and groove. I don't have the capability to do that. So I'm going to come in and cut just, not on the opening side, but on the wood side here and over there. Separate this, and then this is going to get installed there, and I'm going to add bracing on the back to accommodate the fact, and I'm also going to screw through this way to accommodate the fact that it doesn't have the tongue groove. It won't be perfectly strong, but given how broken this thing's been for who knows how long, by the time I'm done, it'll be much stronger. I need to redo the corners, and I'm going to build a better reinforcement that's a bit bigger, does a better job of tying this together. I'm going to add one to that corner where it's never had one. And then the other thing I ran into is this is the IKEA sink that we're going to be using. The bowl on it, the center line of the sink is about here. This is something that I suspected, but I couldn't confirm just looking at pictures. But the center line's about there, which means that the sink is going to move into this space. It shouldn't intersect with the dishwasher. We're going to test that before we cut our holes in the countertop and whatnot, so we know if we have to offset it a little bit. But I want to offset it the absolute bare minimum possible. I want it to have a space from the dishwasher, but not a lot from the garbage disposal or the side of the sink to the dishwasher. I've already checked. The garbage disposal does not stick out any further than the sink, so we're good there. And there's the rebuilt cabinet. I wanted to show rebuilding it, but we were both tired, so I just decided to get done with it, especially because it was all way more rotted than expected. So what ended up happening, I don't remember how much I described before, but this piece used to be the one over here. Cut it very carefully, top and bottom, fitted that on because I didn't have the tongue and groove anymore. There's now glue and 2 screws and one at the bottom. The whole bottom structure was completely rotten, so I just remade it all from scratch. It's got new ply, but in addition, you can see the kickboard's made out of, it's like 5/8 plywood, and that is a whole structure all the way around, and there's a cross brace. So this thing's absurdly heavier duty built than it was before. This is the original side, cut off so that we can run hoses and stuff for the dishwasher, but so that stuff doesn't fall down into the dishwasher cavity. It's not leveled or secured or anything yet. We just needed to get it in so we could get the PEX in and the shutoffs so we could turn the water back onto the house. These will get better secured as soon as we're finalizing stuff. But for now, it was enough to be able to turn the water back on. So, accomplished what we wanted to for the day. I'm really happy with it. It looks like a completely normal cabinet. If you weren't told that it used to be twice as wide, you probably would never know. So, yeah. First test is a success. Run conduit up through. They're all plugged in. Right now they're just plugged into the wall. We just wanted to make sure everything would work. And it does. It was a royal pain to fish the wires through the conduit, but it happened. This conduit over here, I was planning to put it here. You can see the holes. But I ended up having to put it over there because there's a stud here and a stud here, which I thought was going to be great for running it there, except there's several pieces of wood across for no discernible reason. So I ended up having to move it over here so there was actually a straight shot. But that's all hooked up. So last night I got the PEX secured back there we ran a 3-strand 12 gauge line, you can kind of see in the darkness there, down and all the way over into the box. We haven't installed it in the box yet, but it's run all the way here. That's running 2 separate GFI outlets. One is going to be full power for the dishwasher all the time. The other one is switched. There is a switch hidden under here that's going to operate the garbage disposal. This means you can just open the cabinet, reach down, and flip the switch, but it's otherwise out of the way, because I didn't want to clutter up or make you have to reach further in for a switch. Putting these here was the best compromise available, because I couldn't put it anywhere sort of on the back wall there, because the faucet is going to be very close to the back, and therefore all the faucet stuff is going to be there, and I didn't want the wire and the water right next to each other. I couldn't really put it over here because I had to run it up through the same hole, so it would have just been a lot of wire coming back and forth, and there would not have been a long enough cord from the dishwasher to there. So this was the best compromise available. It keeps all the water stuff at the back and as much of the electrical as possible towards the front. That meant now I could get do a test fit of the sink. It's since been moved around a little bit, but we were able to confirm that the sink and the garbage disposal, if they're centered, if we consider this the center and it's centered, there's plenty of room for the dishwasher. None of it's going to stick over. That was a concern because the sink is more than the width of it's more than half of its own width. So we weren't sure if we're going to have to scooch it over, but it looks like we're not gonna. We will have to scooch it this way a little bit to have enough room to fit the faucet behind it and have the faucet clear this, but that won't be a big deal. My partner got this and that patched with tile, so it's effectively the same height as the floor. There's a very slight variation. This one's almost perfect. This one is a very slight variation, but it's way better than it was. This used to be sunk down, and the stove was actually tipped back because we couldn't get the front of it far enough down to compensate for how far the back was down. So this is going to be much better as far as that goes. It's also just going to be neater under here because we'll be able to clean under the stove without stuff falling into a lower spot. So that's all drying, but that's all set. Same thing over here. She put down hardy board here as well, tiled that. So now the dishwasher will be able to slide in and out easily when we're mounting it, and it'll be at the right height and looks great. She matched the tile over there. She didn't match over here just because it would have required her cutting 2 very narrow, 2 tiles where it wasn't necessary, and you're never going to see it. So that's perfectly fine there. Over here, I pulled this off because I need to run a piece of conduit from here up through and into the upper cabinet to hold the wires, the low voltage wires for the under cabinet lighting. This is off because I was looking at how this is wired. This is the switch for that light, and I will be able to tap off of it, run another wire down, and put a plug box here to run the transformer for the under cabinet lighting. So I'll be able to hide all of that under here. It'll come up invisibly, and then in the cabinet there'll be just a little thing here and a hole drilled down, and then all the lighting and stuff is going to be underneath. On this side, I'm going to cut a strip out to do the same thing because we're putting fresh board over this, so having that strip out is not going to be an issue. When we took this out, so the hood that was here was a recirculating hood, but they'd cut a hole in it and hooked it to a vent that went up through here, and it never worked right. And we're planning to take that vent off the side of the house when we reside. So once this was off, I took the vent out and sealed this up, and then there's a piece up here to reinforce. This whole thing was sagging because it wasn't designed to have been cut up like that. So that's reinforcing it, and then that piece fills it in, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit more later. And then I got all of the lighting in and all routed. That included making little plates here. This plate is glued to the end of it to keep it from sliding into the wall, and then screwed in. This was made from a block-off plate. And then down here, I've got a cap, so this end can't slide into the wall. And then you can see I've routed and secured all of the stuff for those lights. Routes over here, same thing over here. Where I had to drill the holes that didn't work because of the wood in the wall, I made some block-off plates for that. And while I was in here, I took out the two rails that were in these drawers that we're not using anymore and replaced two rails here that were all rusty and gross. Probably from moisture from that cutting board when they were using it, so these always squeaked when we used them. So now they're going to have clean rails, so they won't do that. So yeah, massive progress today, and feels like we're doing progress. It actually looks like something. It's not just little tiny things here and there. So today has absolutely kicked ass. Okay, we kicked ass today. So my awesome partner first sanded all the big chunks off of the old mortar that was there, so I could then put up this hardy board. And then after she finished that, she went in and has done all the machine sanding of all of the cabinets as well, which is fucking awesome. While she was doing that, we also got this electrical's hooked up, so this switch now operates this switch box. So now when I turn on that, it turns those on and off. We got the two plugs for the dishwasher and the disposal wired in, and we were able to take out the hood over here. So that got done. There used to be a cutting board here that we never used because it was always gross. So this piece of wood used to be the bottom of the other opening over there, and I cut that, fitted it. There's two little braces to hold it in because there was no way to get screws in from the side. We've got these fitted in. They fit great, leave us very little that we have to fill in. There's like 10 inches on that side and 8 inches on that side. That part's going to be under the microwave. That part's going to be sort of behind the stove, so those seams will never be an issue. Over here, we're going to have a front piece and a rear piece. The plywood is one piece. The go board is, well, it's two pieces. It's a piece that does this and a piece that does that. But you can see there's no seam anywhere near here. So these will be well supported. As far as that goes, this is the best way to do it because trying to cut a hole in the slate carried a bunch of risks. And so trying to take one of our two full sections and cut a hole in the middle that was going to have a relatively narrow, especially front section, wasn't worth the risk. It's safer to do it this way. It'll be mortared in, the joints will be sealed up, but that'll also mean that this narrow piece is not subject to the twisting force of the entire span. All right, another morning update for what we did yesterday, because again, we worked too late and I didn't feel like filming. But we got such important stuff done yesterday. This is we put the plywood in, we put the go board in, cut the hole for the sink, and then we started cutting my recycled slate chalkboard countertops. These are recovered slate from a 1919 school. This is the back of the board. You can see the graining, because what they would do is spall off sheets of split slate and then polish the front perfectly smooth and then polish the rear so that they would be no more than a certain thickness so they would fit in the frames right. We can't use this perfectly smooth fronts because they painted them with a couple layers of chalkboard paint over the years. We tried on one of these to get it off. Essentially, we can't get it out of the pores, so it's not food safe. But this has got a really cool texture and interesting variations where they've sanded it. There's the little pucking you can see where the slate sheets didn't form perfectly, so they spalled off with little divots and raised bits. It's just it feels so good to run your hands over. Like, we both have been finding ourselves just doing this. What am I using to paint this? I am using Rust-Oleum Marine Coating topside paint. in gloss deep green. This is a color that I really like. I've painted equipment in my garage this color, and I kept trying to find paints that matched it and having no luck, and I finally just decided, you know what, I'm going to use this paint. It's very durable, it's very good at self-leveling, it's very abrasion resistant. I mean, it's got to be in a boat that's being scraped, you know, have water rushing against it all the time. It'll stick to bloody anything, UV protection, all that stuff, and it'll be a little shinier than would be perfect for me because this is going to be a gloss rather than a semi-gloss, but I'm entirely fine with that. The other nice thing about this is because it's proper enamel, if I get dust in it, I can come back in after it's had a chance to properly cure and wet sand out all the little nibs and stuff and get it, you know, I don't have to worry about permanent dust marks in it. So it's not optimal because it's going to smell a bit, and it's going to make it really difficult down the line if I ever want to repaint because this stuff's going to be so strong. But I think it's the best choice because I think it'll stand up the best to being the kind of abuse that cabinets in my house are going to take. Yeah. Sorry for the air purifier noise, but we've got our other pieces cut, and we discovered one of our 3 slabs is taller than the others by enough to be significant for what we're doing. So our solution to that is going to be to bed this one in with a small amount of mortar, because all the mortar needs to do is keep this very heavy slab from moving around. So we should be fine with a thin layer on that, and then bed everything else in with a normal amount of mortar, and that should have this up high enough to take up that gap once we account for the thickness of the mortar. We also have some very slight issues with areas not being entirely level, as you can see by this moving, because the slates did it. Like, this is fine, but this front piece has got a little bit of a curve to it. We're going to compensate for that in the mortar. The same thing. This long slab, there's a bit of a wobble in the counter that there was nothing we could really do about. Just trying to shim it was not working, so we're again going to compensate for that with the thickness of the mortar bed. But overall, it's coming together really good. We're really happy. We got lucky in these 2. We were able to salvage from a broken part of the 3rd slab, so it left us a lot of material. So we have one entire other half slab that's going to be able to do all of the backsplash back here, and then we have some left of the other half of this slab which broke, but it's still going to be enough. It gave us that. It gave us that. It'll give us the 6 inches of backsplash we need over there if we don't have enough of this slab. So we're in really good shape as far as materials go. Especially like being able to scavenge this piece and that piece from the broken slab that we have left us in really good shape, because these are 26.5, so we couldn't cut them from a half slab without, you know, wasting a ton of material. They would have had to have been cut like this in a way that just wastes a ton of material. So being able to scavenge them from a broken piece is really good. So the 4 pieces need to be cleaned up. They need to have their backsides scuffed with a heavy grit to get something that the mortar can bite into. And then we will be able to glue this down. And once we glue these down, we are done for today with the countertop, because this all needs to set before we can put the sink in or anything else. I absolutely do not want to touch it because I want to give it the best possible chance of setting up well. As far as painting the cabinets go, I've got my color finally. Don't know how this looks on video, but this is the color I'm using. It's the green I wanted. This was the closest green I'd found before, and you can see this is a much more pure green than that. Anyway, I am so jazzed. This came out as awesome as I hoped it would. This is as cool a thing as I had hoped it would be, and I'm so looking forward to seeing this kitchen in its finished state. I drilled the hole in this with a diamond drill bit and installed it like that, and now that it's in place and solid, I'll drill through the backer board and the plywood so I can put my faucet in. I'm reusing the faucet that we had, It's a brushed nickel, so it's not going to be perfect for this, but it works perfectly well, and I just couldn't rationalize the additional expense to buy another faucet right at this moment. Sometime down the line, when I find one I really like that better matches the theme, I'll spend the money then. But for now, I'm going to put the functional faucet back in. I was very careful. This sticks out 1.5 inches, so I measured out 1.5 inches from there, and then, where is it? And then I fitted this and measured my lip. Oh, right. So last night we got all the slating, and that's how I got my measurement. This is all cut. There's enough clearance that the faucet handle's not going to hit. We're really happy with how it came out. Here, it's wet right now because there's enough room for another wash to get the last of the. And I've got a little bit of fudge mortar off of it. We gave it a good scrub last night, but there were a couple spots that once it was dry, it was still visible. But we've got really good transitions. This one's perfect. It's down just the tiniest bit in the back. We discovered this one, I don't remember if I said, this one is taller than all the other slate. This is a thicker piece. So at the last minute, we had to redo things. So this is sitting on a very thin bed of mortar, and the other stuff's sitting on something thicker, which is part of why we've got slight height differentials. This transition, this piece here, despite our best efforts, this ended up slightly crowned in the frame. So this piece is up higher at the ends than it is in the center. And even then there's a very slight lip there and there's a very slight lip there, but I'm pretty sure what we can do is sand that very slightly to bring it down. And then once we mortar in this joint, they'll be fine. The back here, this is a really good transition given this piece is shorter than that one. And then this one over here is pretty good, but is down just a little bit. This piece was a pain to get in because it turns out this was also not level in a couple of directions. We checked it, but we didn't check it across a large enough span is basically what happened. Like, you'd put the level on and it would seem fine. Not level, because they're not level, but it would seem like everything was straight. But it turns out it was a slow enough curve that it wasn't obvious with the length piece we were using. So this piece was a bit of a challenge, but it's in there nice and solid now. And we're pretty happy with the transitions over here too. The fact that they're not perfect isn't a big deal because it's not like it's right in the middle of the work surface. They're all at places where it's not going to be an issue. But overall, it came out great. This is approximately the color it's going to end up being because we're going to oil it, so it's going to stay this deeper gray. So happy with it. So as soon as I finish work today, I'm going to go in, clean these transitions up slightly if I feel like they need it, mortar them all in. I'm using a silicone, like caulking gun type mortar with no sand in it to fill these because it doesn't need to do anything for support. It just needs to fill that so food and crap doesn't fall in. And then as soon as that's done, the sink can go in. It's going to get sealed in, locked in place. Then I can do plumbing, and then that'll get this all together. All right, so today you get an update on what we did today. I got these grouted with silicone grout. They came out pretty good. This was a really big chip that I had to kind of fill, but I like how they came out overall. And then we got the sink in, which was an absolute bear. It's an IKEA sink, has these terrible little clips that you have to, like, there's a rail that runs here with little square cutouts, and you have to push this plastic piece that's gonna clip into that, that's got a metal springy L thing and a screw. It's a fucking nightmare. I'm sure it's a little bit easier if you have whatever the exact IKEA recommended countertop size is, but it absolutely sucked. It was a royal pain in the ass, but we got it in. It's nice and solid. It ain't going anywhere. It has a rubber gasket, but I also siliconed it down because even though the rubber gasket might keep water from getting past it and down, it's not going to keep schmutz out of the edge of it. So that's why I siliconed it. I've got the garbage disposal in its permanent install. I've puttied the sink drain, so this is in its permanent install. Now what I have to do, I was testing pipe layout, and I think that one's going to work for me. So not tonight because people are going to sleep, so I'm not going to run a saw. But tomorrow I've got to cut the piece that goes here, and the like join. A couple of these are just joined together with a piece of scrap. I need to cut a properly sized piece, and then I need to glue it all in. I also need to hook up the cord to it so I can plug it in, and then that'll be good to go. I've already knocked out the little plug so I can hook the dishwasher up to the back of it, which means that as soon as I get that sewer plumbing finalized, the dishwasher will be ready to go in, because it'll be able to hook up to its two hookups. It's probably not going to go in, but everything to install it will be done at that point. I have not yet drilled this out, because I wanted to get all this in. I was going to do that tonight, and then this all just turned into such a disaster. I will do that tomorrow or something. But we are making good progress. I did manage to get the marker off, finally. It took lacquer thinner and a lot of tries, but it did finally come off, so thank goodness for that. I did find out that our countertop is not level relative to this, so our simple idea of we're just going to cut a 6-inch strip and make it the backsplash isn't going to work, because it's 6 inches over here and it's like 5.5 over here or some other. It's a significant difference. Enough that we can't just cut the shorter distance and put it in, because there'll be a huge gap over on this side. So ideas right now are cut a piece at an angle and hope we can get the angle right, or cut two pieces, you know, have the 6-inch one go in as far, you know, hopefully to the middle, but as far as in as it'll go, and then cut a shorter one and bring it in and have it glued to the bottom and hide the gap up in here where nobody will ever notice. But that's a future me problem. But we're getting close. Like, once I drill that hole, it'll take no time to hook the sink up, because all the connections for it are already in place. Once I get the sewer plumbing glued together, because I already know how I want to do it, it'll be all set. The disposal will be ready to go. Oh, I have to hook it. Yeah, wiring and sewer for the disposal, and then once that's hooked up, the dishwasher is super quick to hook up. And then we're basically left with backsplash, paint the cabinets, and put the front lip on. That may have to wait till this weekend, because I'm realizing I'd rather cut that during the day, not at night, just for light reasons and not being so cold in the garage reasons. Oh, sanding here and here to make the edge match up better. I discovered something I was not expecting. We very carefully got like 400 grit to, you know, not mess up the finish. And I started sanding with 400 grit and it wasn't doing anything. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll be more aggressive with the 220, and then I'll go back with the 400 to, you know, not have too aggressive a surface. And I went with the 220 and it was taking it away, but it was actually making it even smoother here than it already was. So I ended up going to a 180, and that actually, even that is a slightly smoother finish than this milled down finish was. So that just amused me, because I was so paranoid about like, oh no, we don't want to like make it all rough, but no, not going to be an issue. This side, I actually had to take it down enough you can see that the graining disappeared, because that's how much I had to take off to get these to line up. But I'd rather lose that little bit of graining there and have this be smooth and not an edge you can catch on than keep the graining and scratch myself there from time to time. So we're making progress. We're back to fiddly stuff taking forever rather than huge progress in a single day. But I'm still happy with how this is going. And that took us to New Year's Day, which was the last sort of real day we could devote to it. We both had it off work, and then we had to go back to our jobs the next day. So after that, work on the kitchen dragged out a bit, because it was now what we could work on in between everything else going on in our lives. So in the next part of this, you'll see where we got, but as you'll notice, the dates drag out a bunch more. So thanks for watching this part, and I'll catch you for part 2.